What's up? What's up? What's up, everybody? This is Andrew Gillum, coming to you from a little bit of a change of scenery. I'm so tired of my office and doing these episodes. Out of there, I'm like, I'm going to the living room today. But most importantly, we're continuing our conversation on this series of, organizing in the aftermath of Trump 2.0. And I was a little bit concerned about some of the recent writing I've seen on the Black community sort of uh, taking a rest, a break, and not yet being willing to be on the front lines of organizing and movement. I reject that outright. I know that not to be true as a matter of fact. But we do see a lot of conversation on social media and elsewhere about basically, for Black women, look, we're the 98%. We're the 96%. We're there. We're tried and true. Now it's time for you all to do. Um, um, so we know that it exists. It's not coming out of thin air. And today, to help me sort of diagnose this, to drill a little bit deeper, for just a few minutes of our day, because I'm sure you all out there are engaging in this conversation as well, is a fellow Floridian. Is that right, Deyona? You're
Yes,
Jacksonville,
born and
right?
raised in Jacksonville, Florida. Yes, sir.
Dude, a Jacksonville native who happens to be striking it hot in Washington, D.C., even in dystopian Washington, D.C. under the Trump administration. You're finding a way to have impact and make change. I would love for you to just give your vita, but do it in a way that I know you know how to, which is by way of just conversation, introducing what your experiences have been that have led you to this particular political moment and how we're navigating it.
Yeah, so hey y'all, my name is Deyona Burton. As Mr. Gillum mentioned, I'm from Jacksonville.
Andrew.
Oh gosh, I'm from the South. You know what's coming. But as he mentioned, I'm from Jacksonville, Florida. I now reside in DC. And prior to me getting in a little bit about myself, I do want to preface I do not have all the answers, but I will try my best to engage in this conversation. I worked on a multitude of campaigns, a multitude of offices from the local, state to the federal level. And now I'm here in DC where everything's happening. So
Yeah.
happy to answer anything.
Well, I'll tell you, your your involvement in Florida prior to going off to Washington, prior to becoming what we might describe as sort of professional staff on political campaigns and so on and so forth. Many of our listeners are agitated and frustrated and want to know what they could do right where they are to disrupt what they see happening in the country. And I would argue, probably not just at the federal level, but it's trickling down as Trump Nasium continues into our local levels, our school boards, our city council meetings. The kind of divides that local government never had to experience, they're now coming, fast and furious, and our heads are on a swivel, just trying to protect the little turf that we do have. What advice would you give to folks who are just starting out? They want to make an impact, they just don't know what to do.
So to answer that question, I'm actually going to tell a story in reference to Michelle Obama famously saying, "Do something." Back in 2020, my apologies, I was elected senior class president of my high school, what was then Robert E. Lee High School. Um, 2020, I'm 17. It was following the summer of 2020. We all know the activism and the activation that was happening there. Our school board introduced a docket to remove all Confederate tied names from public institutions. My school being named after Robert E. Lee, it was one of the most profound names in there. Um, I was also part of the Student Advisory Council, so I attended a couple meetings as part of the Student Advisory Council member and the senior class president. But one of the public hearings, I noticed that I was the only student there, other than teachers and the principal. The auditorium was filled with alumni. My school was desegregated in, I want to say, the 70s. So we had a lot of angry alumni that stated that there was nothing wrong with the name Robert E. Lee. And if there was something wrong or if somebody had a problem with the name, it's probably because it's a predominantly Black school now, and maybe we should go back to segregation. Um, Following
Whoa.
that, Right. Following that public hearing, we started getting more alumni with Confederate flags, with nooses, screaming more and more racial slurs. And I was 17. I couldn't vote, um, couldn't sign my own name on certain documents. I still had to ask for my mom's permission. I was going through my own financial and personal issues. I was homeless at the time. It felt like I could do nothing. Um, until I could. We organized a protest in front of the school board building, and we had a couple news outlets there, and they wanted to hear more. So we started getting more students. We brought them to the public hearings. We made sure that they could be at the school board meetings. We had the superintendent, we had the principal, we had school board members be there and listen to the students, to the point where the school board could do nothing but host a vote in which students could participate in. We got community leaders, we got students, and on the day of my graduation, the superintendent made a recommendation to change the name of Robert E. Lee High School to Riverside High, which it is now named. It has been named Riverside High School since 2021. I am the last senior class president of Robert E. Lee High School.
Wow.
All of that change happened within a few short months, within my graduation, before I went to Florida State. And I was a CARE student, so I went off to Florida State in the summer. That's an example of doing something. That's an example of speaking out. I had no money, no home, no notoriety, no nothing other than a voice and a will. Um, if you care about something, it doesn't matter how niche it is, it doesn't matter how small it is. Sure, post it, but also talk about it. Go to those meetings, go to your library, research it, go to your city council meetings and stay. Sometimes they're long and we don't always know what they're talking about, but stay to the end. Speak to the members after. Give them your number, give them your email. Be willing to have a conversation, because ultimately action doesn't happen without conversation. And I think we like to skip to the action part, but talking about it and making sure that it's pressing, making sure that it is, even if it's not hot news, making sure that it is still being talked about, still being known, that's half the battle right there.
I love that. And I appreciate you sharing that story with us. It's amazing when white Americans are asked the question whether or not this country is racist or rooted in a racist past. The immediate answer, no, of course not. Da, 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 da. But you challenge the systems and the structures and the institutions that have given them great cover and comfort for as long a time as they've ever known, back to their ancestors. When you disrupt that, then it's all, the mask comes off. You start dealing with them in real fashion, and now you can go back to your country, right? After you've built this one and perfected it over time, you can go back. I'm curious to know, in the aftermath of the election, obviously man, I don't even know, ground shaking, earth shaking moves by the early months of the Trump administration. A lot of folks are feeling great despair. A lot of folks do want to check out, or they have checked out since the election, and frankly, hadn't found a reason yet to check back in, choosing instead to be not as aware and not as informed of the day to day, to protect their peace of mind, and also to keep them focused on what's most important, which is probably the safety, security, and support for their family, right? How do we shake folks out of that? Or do we need to, if we're about to fight this marathon of a fight over the next 4 years, to keep what little we already have?
Um, Before hopping on here, you referenced something. You said two truths, and I think that's the perfect way to go about answering this. Running a marathon, you got to pace yourself. Doing any endeavor, we have to pace ourselves, because the seeds that we're sowing now, we're often not going to be able to see the fruits of our labor. And this isn't necessarily me doing the work for me or even for my kids. It might be for my kids' kids or their grandkids, and so on. So I think the first part of that is acknowledging that the people on one side of a conversation, which regardless of which side it is, they have a right to feel that way. Um, you're right. A lot of people were in despair. A lot of people were tired. I was one of those people. I gave my all to that campaign. This Kamala Harris running for office, it was historic, of course, but that was the first presidential election I could vote in. As I mentioned, a lot of the activism, especially for young people, especially for my peers, we're starting it without being able to be fully represented. Where, you know, whether it was March for Our Lives and us just asking to not get gunned down in schools, or asking for school supplies, or asking for our schools to not be named after a racist Confederate. We are advocating, we are chanting, we are yelling, we're giving our all, but we can only do so much because we're not of age, because we don't have the status. Then we finally can vote. We finally can be in college, make some noise in SGA, and I know you know how that goes. Make some noise in our community, and we're seeing this movement on TikTok. We're seeing this movement online. We're thinking that everybody, you know, knows the right answer to this very simple question, and it doesn't go that way. Um, it's almost like it's almost like, while it's not our fault that the election turned out the way it is, we owe it to ourselves to allow ourselves to feel all the emotions, to allow ourselves to go through the stages of grief, to come to terms with what that means. And it's not just, it didn't just end in November, you know what I mean? Because then we had the inauguration followed by several mandates, several executive orders. I have friends, I have family members that either don't know what their educational status is going to be, don't know what their citizenship status is going to be. We have people getting their resources stripped away from them. We have people who don't know if they could continue going to school. I want to go to law school. I don't know if that's financially feasible for me anymore. I don't know if that matters anymore. I don't know if the rule of law matters anymore. And as big or symbolic as that may sound, you know, sometimes we just need to detach. You know, I'm not a technician or anything, but if my TV stopped working, I'm gonna unplug it, give it a little time, and plug it right back in. Same thing with my computer. If it's not working, I'm gonna turn it off. If my phone freezes up, I'm gonna turn it off, give it a little second, and I'm gonna turn it right back on. Just because people are taking some time to enjoy homecoming, learn a few new trail ride dances, to do a few new hairstyles, to learn a new trend, to do whatever it may be, just because people are expressing joy
Yeah.
doesn't mean that they're not going to get back out there, because that's what our people have always done. And the one thing I will say is that the idea that we just need to jump right back into action, that's harmful.
Yeah.
I'm not saying stop it. I'm not saying stop caring, but take care of yourself, because how could you possibly complete the marathon if you get injured on mile 3 and you're not taking care of yourself?
That's real.
We're I don't know how far we are in the race. I Our ancestors laid the foundation, and we're just going to keep on pushing on. But part of that is finding the joy within it, and
That's real.
we know that some of us still sing the slave hymns. You know what I mean? Some of us still have those recipes that were passed down from generations. We still have cookouts. We still have family
That's right.
reunions. We still run apart from each other when we laugh. Like, it's embedded in us. It's embedded in us, and part of the need to keep on keeping on is taking rest, because rest isn't just revolutionary, it's needed. And
Yeah.
rest can look like a multitude of things, but I don't believe that there's no liberation without fun, because what are we fighting for if I can't laugh? What are
That's right.
we fighting for
That's
if
real.
I can't go out to the protest and then go to my lash appointment after,
That's
get
real.
my hair done after, because I don't feel like my best self when I'm not put together. And if I don't feel like my best self, I can't show up for the people. And part of showing up for the people is recognizing that as a person, I am the people. So I also
Mm.
have to show up for myself.
I love that. I love that. Well, we know where you stand, and I hope nobody comes sideways toward you or your friends on this
I
issue.
welcome it.
Well, let's do this. I want to invite in our mutual friend Lolo, and as we wind down our few minutes, it really does go quickly, Deyona. But you've inspired us with your own jewels and wisdom, and I can tell you from just personal experience, the fact that I so forcefully threw myself into leadership, into government, into change making, so much so that when it was gone, I had no real appreciation for who I was. And it was a spiral I would not wish on anyone. And so the self care piece is important here. And my only hope is that people aren't bandwagoning this thing, but are truly deepening into what their need is, seeing about their need and how it gets met, and then getting themselves strapped right back in for the fight. We're gonna have to sleep in shifts. we don't get the luxury of checking all the way out because we know that we sit at the greatest epicenter of impact. Lola, where are you? I don't know if you're here with us or in a different room, but want to invite you in as we wrap the session to see if there were any burning questions that we could deal with. And if I don't get a response, I mean, I assume that to mean Lolo is out. Okay. All right. All right. I think we're without Lolo at the very moment. But Diana, if you had um, something, a note that you wanted to leave with the folks who have joined us and those who will listen when this is in a production, post production form, what would you say to those like you who are disheartened, who found it very difficult to sort of check back in, although you have? What would you say as the big push that made sense for you and for the things that you care about, and maybe others might take some wisdom from that as well?
I'm a firm believer that to reach your target audience or to reach the community, you have to know the community. And I want to correct you for just a brief moment because you said what got me back in. And honestly, I'm not all the way in.
Mm,
My um, candor, my piece about taking care of yourself wasn't, I read it in a book and oh, that just makes so much sense, or I heard it in passing, or I saw it on a billboard. It was because I had to stop, because I gave my all. So I come to this conversation as someone who wasn't sleeping, as someone who was always protesting, always activating on several Zoom calls, sometimes on a multitude of calls. You can tell Nick that's how I learned my suitcase trick, but a multitude of calls. Um, Trying to get the resources to the people, whether that be food, whether that be knowledge, whether that be funding. I gave my absolute all at the expense of myself. We're not talking about just losing our way. I was a machine for a candidate, a multitude of candidates for a cause, and think these are all things that should be common sense. I was fighting for my livelihood, fighting to be represented, fighting to be seen as a person, and in turn, I wasn't treating myself like a person.
mm,
I am not um, a therapist. I am not, I don't do yoga. I probably should, but I don't have all the answers in regards to self
yeah.
care. And when I hear people say that, I'm happy that it's a part of the conversation because it's also attached to mental health. Um, your mental health will take a toll if you don't do something for the outside and for the community and for the environment, but if you don't do something for yourself.
Yeah.
I don't care if showing up for yourself is deciding to take the day off if you can. I don't care if doing something for yourself is doing your hair, is taking some rest, is going out and going to a crowd. Well, I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is, but whatever it is for you, every time you do something for the community, give it back to yourself. You
Hmm.
have to. There's it's not worth, there's no fight worth it without you. You can't fight without you. You can't
Yeah.
abandon yourself. And I think it's and hopefully this is another topic for later, but I really want people to show up for themselves because I'm speaking from experience. We have a lot of people, we have a lot of organizers and leaders who have abandoned themselves. And what you see is a vessel for the people, and they've forgotten that they are the
Mm,
people.
mm,
So, not to tune out of elections, not to tune out of activism, but it's it's a hard balance when when every time you open your phone, it's something that this administration is doing, and you can't even draft up a graphic quick enough, get out the word quick enough, because by the time it's posted, there's something else.
yeah.
If you look on any of my activism pages, there's time gaps in between it because I had to take time for me, because sometimes news isn't the most helpful thing, but it's being ready for the fight, and I can't be ready without having myself together. So I just hope
I
that
love
people
that.
know.
That'll preach.
Yeah, no, I'm so serious.
That'll
I just hope that
preach.
people know I'm not just talking to them. I've been through it, and if they're not there right now, that's fine. Your body will let you know when you're ready. Your body will also let you know when you need to stop.
Yeah.
And if you have to stop, stop. But just remember, unplugging that TV, unplugging that cord doesn't mean you're never going to watch TV again. Just plug it right back in when you're ready. And it will
That's
turn
it.
on.
Activist, leader, advocate, social justice warrior, Deyona Burton, Florida native, homegrown, Duval County, Jacksonville,
Come on now.
Florida. Very successful. We're incredibly proud of you and for you.
Thank
And thanks for spending just a few moments, especially at last minute notice, to share some pearls of wisdom with us. And for the old heads, y'all, I think we heard pretty clear from Deyona, that we should just take a beat before we batter the next generation coming after us on what they are and aren't doing. Let's take a beat, let them rest into themselves, and very quickly renew the fight and get back on the field. Y'all, it's been real. And guess what? I'll be right back next week, Monday. We'll have a consecutive back to back, and we'll get back to our training curriculum on organizing. We'll catch up with you later. Deyona, thanks again for your time.
Thank you.
Native Land Pod is a production of iHeartRadio in partnership with Reason Choice Media. For more podcasts from iHeartRadio, visit the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows.